Today we're going to start a three-part series in the tanker division. The first one we're going to start with will be the heating system. We will go through each point of contact and how to set it up. To begin with, we'll start here at the back. One of the key things when you're running heat is to make sure this valve right here is closed. If the valve is open, all your coolant will drain out this line. So make sure that is closed. At the back of the trailer is a little elbow back here. This is the back end of the heating system. Lines go up through that, wrap around it, and you have to make sure the heat is, or the coolant is flowing through there so you have good heat. So your product sitting inside that tube, if you're sitting on your 10-hour break in wintertime, it could potentially gel up. So we've got to make sure that heat is flowing through there, the coolant is flowing through there as we go through this system. Before I get hooked up though, I want to feel it. Is it cold? Is it hot? Where is it? Once we get our heat hooked up, we will touch it again to see if we have flow through that valve and to make sure everything's working right. Next, let's go up to the front. Okay. We're going to start on the passenger side. Luckily, there's no APU, so I can reach in here and you get a good view of it. There's two things you want to do. Shut two valves immediately. This stops the flow of the coolant going through the lines because I will go around to the other side, disconnect, and I don't want that spewing out all over me or all over the ground and having a spill. So we shut these valves, then we'll go around, unhook our lines, get up on the deck and hook them up. At this point, we're going to disconnect our in-transit heat lines and get ready to hook them up to the trailer. This will get our flow going into the trailer as we do it. First, there's a female and a male. Pull back on the female. Sometimes these will drip, so not a bad idea to have a towel with you because it will spew out. All right, for safety reasons, let me get these unhooked out of the way here. I'm always going to hook the furthest one away. That way as I back down, I'm not tripping over the hoses as I get down. So I'll pull my caps, plugs. Since this is a female on this side, I will hook up the male, push back on the female, get the bearing showing. Make sure you lock it, make sure you give it a good tug. Now for the female side, we're going to do the same thing, except it's the opposite end. Pull this back, slide it in there, and if you'll notice there's a dirty spot and a clean. You want to cover that clean completely up so all you're seeing is that dirty left. Give it a tug. Give it a quick little spin, and then let's open our valve. At this time, I want to show you what you're going to see on a standard trailer throughout our entire fleet. My training trailer has an older style system set up, but I want you to be very comfortable, be able to reach up, touch, and understand what we're talking about. First, there's three valves, A, B, and C. A, B, and C. This B valve must remain closed at all times. If this valve is open when you pick the trailer up, that's a good indication that this trailer was steamed, so it may be low on coolant. So if it is open, we close it, we hook up, inlet, outlet, we've got our temperature gauge that tells us the temperature flow going through the system. And some drivers are also doing this. This little plug right here, this is a pressure relief valve. If that pops, all the coolant comes out. So drivers will put a little plug in there temporarily as they're going through the mountains, so if it builds up pressure, this does not pop and they lose all their coolant. So key things, valves open, this one stays closed at all times. Now we're back on the passenger side where your four valve system is. In order to get the flow going according to the way we need it, we have to open and close valves in a certain direction. We're going to use the heater. So in that case, there are two valves going to the heater. There's one on top, there's one on the bottom. These two lines are hooked up over here. The one on my right is the return from the trailer. Coolant comes back, goes through the system, gets heated around the engine, and then it flows back through this line if we want to go directly to the trailer. So what I'm going to do is close the two valves to the heater, open the middle one where it's pointing straight up, or it may be pointing down, just depends on your valve. When we start the truck, the flow will come directly from the engine through the system. Why are we doing all this? Because sometimes the trailer is low on coolant. In order to get this charged or make sure it's charged before we take off, we want to make sure the trailer is completely full. It holds 4 gallons, and we need to make sure before we take off this parking lot where we're parked in a nice spot and get out on the interstate and get shut down. So if you want to, you can also use the heater at this point. I want to get the flow going very fast or very efficiently, so I don't spend a lot of time doing this, but I've got to make sure I have plenty of coolant. So I've got this open, the 3-way is closed, the 2 to the heater are open, so the flow is going to go through the heater. It'll come out this top line and go to the trailer that way. My valves are opened over here, so I've got good flow going to the trailer. Once we have all the valves in position where we need them, we're going to go turn our heater on. We may have had the truck running already. That's fine. Once you open the valves, then the flow will start. But we do want to get a little extra boost. We'll turn this on. The pump in there will help this flow. Why? Because if this is low, it will shut your truck off, as I mentioned. Once we have all this set up, let's go around, open our hood, make sure we can see our reservoir. As it starts to go down, we can add coolant if needed. If we don't need to, then while this is flowing, while this is moving, we can go around, do our pre-trip on our truck, check everything else, give it some time, and we'll go back around and touch that little elbow behind the cabinet. Now, on your reservoir for your antifreeze, there is a sensor in there, and there's lines over there. It tells you when it's cold, when it's hot, and so forth. Be very careful if you're dealing with this when it's hot. If you have to add coolant, it could be under pressure, so very slowly take the cap off. Might have a rag with you. Have a towel if you need to. And I heard a little hiss. So once I get that cap off, if I need to, I can add coolant in there and get it up above the little sensor that's back over here. Give it a good 10 or 15 minutes, while you're checking everything else, then come back around. If your truck all of a sudden shuts off, it's probably because the trailer was low on coolant and it's shutting your truck down. There's a warning signal that'll give you 60 seconds to shut your truck down. Once you do find that out, let's get the coolant out and start adding to it. There will be times when this trailer is completely dry on coolant. It has been steamed, the tank wash didn't put it back in it, so we're going to have to add 4 gallons, and that's how many this trailer holds when it's empty. So as we go through this, just stay with it. You don't want to not do this and then get out on the road and get shut down on the side of the road on the interstate. One of the other things we want to cover is our supplementary heat source. During the winter months, or when we're running heat, period, I guess, we don't want to idle our truck at night. That's burning a lot of fuel, a lot of profit. So what we've done is added, and this is an older unit, there are newer models that are out there now, but for now on this truck, this is what we'll show you. It all works the same. When we shut our truck off at night, we need to adjust our valves. We're going to open the 2, if they're not already open, to this heater unit. Close the 3-way in the middle, make sure it's shut, and of course make sure this valve right here is open so the flow can come from the trailer to the tractor and circulate through. Now on the dash is a little red toggle switch, and for this particular model, you just raise a little red tab up, hit the switch, this turns on. There is a heater in here, there's a furnace to heat up the coolant as it's going through. It will be pushing through that pump, through your engine, all this coolant as you sleep at night. If it gets brutally cold, you may have to run both. But on average, you want to run this and not run your truck, save some fuel. It's a win-win in that scenario. All right, on most of our older model trucks, this is the toggle switch that you will raise. This little switch under here, you raise it. That turns the heat on, or turns the power on to the heater on the back of your truck. That's our supplementary heat source. Just turn it on and let it run. If you're running heat, just keep it on. Now, you can switch your valves and run it at night and day, but most of the time I just teach everybody just leave it on. If you've got your lines hooked up and you don't need to run heat, just leave it off. For Peterbilt trucks, you do have to use this the entire trip. There's not enough pressure off the engine to push the coolant all the way to the back of the trailer, so you do need to run this until further notice. Now, when you're done, need to turn it off. If you don't have this, just throw the tab down like that. Now, some of the trucks they have gone to a different model or a different type of button, you would just have to get with the manufacturer or Road Assist to find out exactly which one it is. We have 2 sets of gloves, one for fueling, one for hooking up our heat lines, hooking up our hydraulic lines. Once we're done there, leave those gloves at that location, because once we go to the dome in the back area, we need a set of clean gloves to present ourselves as being very conscious of keeping things clean, healthy, and up to par for most customers. We don't want dirty fueling gloves handling the hoses or near the product. So let's always keep 2 sets of gloves, one for the dirty stuff and one for the clean stuff. This is not just a wintertime event that's taking place here. If you get your bills, it says run heat, you're going to be running heat. Just hook it up and test the system out like we've shown and go from there. It's going to be more prevalent in the winter because the trailers are steamed, product is sticking inside, tank washes have to drain all the coolant, steam them up to get all that product out. So it's kind of a catch-22, but it's part of the business, and you need to be very efficient. Make sure you know every step of this process before you take off down the road and head to your customer.